Shalom, shalom. All praise to the Most High. Now let's get to it. First, on this first part of this series, we talked about who is Esau. We related some scriptures in Genesis 25, 27, and a couple of verses from, I believe, Genesis, the 36th chapter. Now we're going to continue our evaluation. We're going to go back to those chapters too as well and grab a different perspective from what we had already got. We'll get a little bit more this surface level than what we got last time. A little bit more. Then we're going to link up how we know through the scriptures for a fact who the so-called white man is today, which is Esau, the hairy man, the shaggy man, the serpent, the dragon. All right, and we're going to prove that through the scripture. So it doesn't sound like it's quote unquote racial or anything. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. That's all that is. Not because we want it to be that way. It is what it is. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about, I touched on this last time, but I wanted to talk about this again because I think it's very important when we go through these lessons, so we can, when we go through these lessons, that we break down some of the concepts so that we're not, we're getting a full understanding of what's going on and why we're even talking about this in the first place. Let's grab Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 16.
It's the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 16. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit.
So as we see here, there is no end of all the people. What does that mean? All the people that we read about in the scriptures are what we call today races of people today, which is really just nations of people. And it's important to understand that because when you understand that, you're able to discern who you are in the scriptures through prophecy, through the foretelling, the descriptions of the people of the book, and various other ways of current events and things of that nature. And one thing to touch on quickly too, if you aren't aware, if you hear me or brothers like me that say so-called white or so-called black, it's because there is literally no such thing as a white man. All right, that doesn't exist. That's not a race. That's just a color. All right, black is just a color. That's not actually a race. All right, it's just a placeholder. So if I say black people, so on and so forth, I'm just using that because it's relatable and people know that. But in its true essence, it's not a real thing that's based on any substance, any genealogy, any heritage. And it dang sure isn't biblical. So when I say Esau is a so-called white man, I'm just relating that to today. His biblical name is an Edomite. All right. And I'm not saying all this to say you go straight to the next so-called white person you see and call him a dirty, nasty Edomite, but it's just important to understand that aspect of it. Now we'll go ahead and get started. Just wanted to touch on that quickly. Let's grab, we talked about Genesis 27 last time. Let's grab Genesis 27 and 11 and approach it from a different aspect this time.
It's the book of Genesis chapter 27 and verse 11. And it reads, and Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man.
All right, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. All right, now let's take a further look into this word hairy here. All right, let's see how Esau is described by the biblical scholars, quote unquote. Let's see what they say. You have the word here, H8163, Sire, at least in the modern Hebrew. Now look at the words that this word is translated as. And for those, by the way, this is just the Hebrew word that's in Genesis 27:11 for Harry. So this is the Hebrew word that's used. Remember, the Bible is not written in English. Originally was not written in English. So look at the words here. The KJV translates Strong's H8163 in the following manner. Kid, what's a kid? A goat, okay? A baby goat, essentially, or a young goat. Goat, devil, satyr, rough, or hairy. So when we say the so-called white man is the devil, it's right here. It's not like we're making that up, or it's never been said before, or whatever the case is. It's not because we want it to be that way. It's just, it's just written. We can do about that. Saturn, this is a half man, half goat. All right, hairy, like a hairy garment all over, and rough. And you have to understand that rough is more along the lines of savage. Like a caveman would be rough. All right. So now let's look at this too. Adjective, hairy, masculine. Now, he goat, buck, as sacrificial animal. Satyr may refer to a demon-possessed goat, like the swine of Gadara. My goodness. You see what I'm saying? You see how Esau was described in the scriptures? A he goat. Now that's important. Let's touch on that. A he goat. Because we see this somewhere else in the scriptures, a he goat. So let's examine that. Let's grab Daniel chapter 8 and verse 5.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 8 and verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, an he goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes.
All right. So we see here that, behold, an he goat came from the west. Hey, brothers, did we do a lesson on Daniel, the 7th chapter or the 8th chapter? I think it was the 7th chapter, right? It was the 7th chapter. Yeah, it was the 7th chapter. I don't think in the 7th chapter it uses the term he goat, but just to summarize it here, the he goat here in this verse is referring to none other than Alexander, the quote unquote great. All right, Alexander the Greek. This was a prophecy about him. Okay. We can see that ourselves from, what verse in it? I like to look at my scriptures. Oh, right here. Read verse 21 real quick.
Book of Daniel, chapter 8 and verse 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
Okay, so the first king of Grecia, that's referring to Alexander, the quote unquote great, which was the ancient Greek king of Macedon. Okay, we know this is a so-called white man. Okay, he was not, of the stock of Jacob, or he wasn't so-called black. All right, this is what he actually looked like. Now we know a lot of times in history. What is this? Wow, they just do anything. Anyway, we know a lot of times in history, our people were kings or things of that nature, notable figures in history, and the so-called white man likes to claim that it's him, but not in this case. And you know how you know? Is because I bet you everybody listening to this remembers the name Alexander the Great. Why? Because they teach you who this is at school, because this is one of the first Caucasian kings Okay, he was the first so-called white ruler back in 320 BC or so. He died in what, 323? 323. So that's why you have to learn about him in school, because he's venerated, even though he killed, probably upwards to 1 million people, took over and conquered all these Aboriginal people. They still make you learn about him. Why? Because that's their people. All right. And this is how we know Esau is the so-called white man. It's the same description is used here, the he goat, the buck. All right, because again, the goat is it's a symbol for the so-called white man. All right. So that's one way we know who he is. Now, let's talk about Mount Seir again. Let's get Genesis 36 and 8. Look at it different. We'll have a different approach at it this time.
All right. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 36 and verse 8. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom.
Okay, Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. That was his heritage. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 2 and verse 5.
All right. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 2 and verse 5. Meddle not with them, for I will not give you of their land. No, not so much as a foot breadth, because I have given Mount Seir unto Esau for a possession.
So Mount Seir was given to Esau for a possession. All right. Now, let's look at this again. We looked at this at the end of the first call. Mount Seir. All right. This is the Hebrew word for seer in the scripture. Seer, hairy, shaggy. All right. So if we see, this is Mount Seir right here. Okay. It has the same descriptions used not only for Esau, but for the land. It's shaggy, it's rough, it's filled with caves. All right, this is what Mount Seir actually looks like. Cave dwellers, Petra or Edom. All right, cave dwellers. So why is that relevant? Let's get the book of Obadiah. We could go into this whole prophecy, but we're just going to go from verse 1 down to verse 3.
All right. It's the book of Obadiah, chapter 1 and verse 1. The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord God concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord. An ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle.
Okay, so we know that this vision of Obadiah is concerning Edom or Esau, which is one and the same. Remember, we just read Esau. Esau is Edom. So this is referring to the Edomites. All right, this prophecy that we're about to read here. Let's get verse 2.
Verse 2, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised.
Pretty much all nations of people despise the so-called white man in a certain extent. But keep going.
Verse 3, the pride of thine heart have deceived thee, that thou dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground?
Okay, thou dwellest in the clefts of the rock. It's Mount Seir, right? That's what this is referring to. Yes, and also this is concerning Esau or the Edomites dwelling in the Caucasus Mountains as well. All right. So again, what do you call a white person named the correct, quote unquote, correct political name, or their whatever you would even classify this as, Caucasian? Why is that? Because they moved from Mount Seir to the Caucasus Mountains. So when you read this in the scriptures, Um, Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. It's not just referring to Mount Seir, it's referring to the Caucasus Mountains as well. But let's get some proof that they were there. First, I got these maps pulled up here on my other screen. I might as well show these over here too. Let's see where Mount Seir is. It's over here. You see, this is Israel, and we can zoom in. This is where Mount Seir is right here. It's close to Israel. Okay, get out of here. All right, and then I'll show y'all where the Caucasus Mountains are. Because again, you think this is a coincidence? They're called Caucasians, and these are the Caucasus Mountains. They came, we know for a fact they dwelt in Mount Seir. That was their possession. So doesn't it make sense that they would migrate from here up to here to some more rough and shaggy mountains? Makes sense to me. So this is where this is, over here in Russia. All right. Over here in Georgia. All right, so just so y'all get a visual of where it's at, where it's located at. That's the Caucasus Mountains. All right, now, again, let's get some proof. All right, just pull it up too, so you can see where they are. Let's get some proof that they being the so-called white man or Esau dwelt in the Caucasus Mountains. Now we got a very important book here that was written by a so-called white man, Jewish, quote unquote Jewish to be exact too. His name is how you pronounce it? Arthur Koestler. This is the 13th tribe, the Khazar Empire and its heritage. So basically, to sum it up, this guy, which is Jewish, he claims that the people that call themselves Jewish today, they cannot be a part of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they must be part of a 13th tribe because they are not a part of the 12 tribes of Israel. That's his claim. And he's so-called white, all right, and Jewish at that. I lost my spot. Oh, right here. Now bring this out. Of course, we're not going to get all of it or nothing, or even a good portion of it, but it's just one part of this I wanted to get. You can start from the top.
This was written before the full extent of the Holocaust was known, but that does not alter the fact. A little too small, too big. There you go. That's good. But does not alter the fact that the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin.
Okay, so Khazar, just to keep it simple, that's just a people known in history as the Khazars, which actually means pig in Hebrew. All right, interestingly enough, keep going.
If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga, not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus.
From the Caucasus. Okay, the people that call themselves Jewish today came from the Caucasus. All right, because the people that call themselves Jewish today are Khazars. All right, or Slavs. That's really where that word comes from, slave. Slaves comes from the word Slavs. Over there in Yugoslavia and things of that nature, that's where the original slaves were. They used to serve us being so-called black people and them being so-called white people. They were the original slaves. All right, and they got that concept from us essentially. But anyway, the point is that the Edomites dwelt in the Caucasus Mountains. Okay, and that's why they're called Caucasian today. That's the link that I'm making here. All right, we got another testimony. This book here, I really don't want to lose my spot. It's called the, I can get back to this. So this is the beginning rise. This book, if brothers want to look it up, it's called The Outline of History, Being a Plain History of Life and Mankind by H.G. Wells. And let's get back to where we were. 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right, so we don't make this too long here. I got 2 parts I want you to read. And again, these are so-called white, quote unquote, scholars that are writing this. They used to bring out this type of information before everything came about disproving the Bible. It used to be about proving the Bible, and it used to bring out the truth. Now everything is censored. You know, nothing like this could ever come out now today. All right, just read that part that's highlighted there, brother.
On one occasion, the Idumeans, being conquered, were all forcibly made Jews.
Forcibly made Jews. The people that call themselves Jews today are not. All right, they are not. They adapted that, or that's not the proper word to say. They stole the whole identity of being a Jew. It was stolen. They're usurpers or supplanters. Okay, they are not authentic. They are not Jewish. Really, that's not even a thing. Anyway, Jewish. Ish is like or pertaining to. All right, and then read this real quick.
The main part of Jewry never was in Judea and had never came out of Judea.
So basically what he's saying is that the people that call themselves Jewish today, they never lived in Judea. They never lived in Israel. That was never their homeland. You can track it through history. All right. So these people lived, the only 2 places we know for a fact through history that they lived is in Mount Seir and the Caucasus Mountains. All right. That's why you cannot let these cavemen sweat you to death. That's where they come from. All right. This is not me just saying it. It's just literally history. And we have plenty of testimonies for that. All right. We can keep going on that, but let's move on to Genesis 25. Let's examine this in a different aspect as well. Genesis 25 and 25.
Okay. It's the book of Genesis, chapter 25 and verse 25. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they call his name Esau.
Okay, remember in the scriptures, it's written in the scriptures are written in a certain way that only the elect are going to be able to understand. When I say elect, not necessarily at the end times elect, those of the children of Israel will be able to understand this. Okay. If it was written in a way that everybody could understand it, Esau would have probably tried to destroy the scriptures a long time ago. But he knew that he could just put his lies in front of the Bible and people wouldn't pay any attention. And that's just all from a surface level. We know this is spiritual, but it's all just a surface level. If it spelled it out plainly, you know, anytime we went into captivity, it'd probably be over with. You know, they probably try to destroy the scriptures and make sure we never see them. So we have to pick up on the clues that the Most High gave us. All right, now one clue here is this word red. All right. Now, one thing that I noted is very interesting is that, you know, Rothschild means red shield. Rothschild means red shield. We know that's one of the most wicked families on planet Earth. I mean, they were responsible for this wicked school system, all types of stuff. Their history runs deep. You know, these Rockefellers and Rothschilds. All right. But the point is, their name means red shield. You think they don't know this? that they came out red all over like a hairy garment, they know their biblical names. All right, that's why they're, labeled as a red shield. Now, this is what I wanted to get though. Now, this is really interesting. So, this discussing person here, Ben Franklin, one of the quote unquote founding fathers, as they say, he made an interesting comment, before he died. Let's see what he says here. Let me zoom this up. Okay. Now we can get into all of this, but let's just, get straight to the point. All right, where do we want to start this from? The point is right here, but where I want to start it from. All right, first let's just do this. Read this. Read this, and then we'll get to the point.
All right. Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionably very small.
Oh, wow. So this is referring to back in the 1700s when, quote unquote, America was being established. He said, Ben Franklin said that the number of, quote unquote, white people is proportionally very small. All right, keep going.
All Africa is black or tawny. Asia chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so.
Okay, so he's saying that the original Americans that were already there were black or tawny. He's bringing out who the Aboriginal people really are. They try to teach you in school that, so-called white people come from everywhere. No, they don't. They come from two places, the Caucasus Mountains and Mount Seir. That is it. So-called black people are aboriginal to everywhere on planet Earth, including Europe, including Australia. All these places you think is exclusively white, they did not begin that way. They're just like that right now. But do not be deceived. All right, this is real history. This is not something I'm making up or I'm being a quote unquote conspiracy theorist. It's just real history. It's just facts. All right, keep going.
And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion.
Swarthy means the same thing as black. Okay. So a lot of times when you read books about people in the quote unquote Middle Ages, they'll be described as swarthy, like a brother, I'm tripping right now. Shakespeare, swarthy. All right, because Shakespeare was a so-called black man, believe it or not. But he's bringing out, look, French, Russians, Swedes from Sweden, Spaniards, Italians were all so-called black originally. Now you hear these names, you think of white people, but that was not originally the case. All right, so now let's see what he said. Let's get the point. You can just read that right there. I highlight it.
Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so fair an opportunity, by excluding all blacks and tawnies, of increasing the lovely white and red.
The lovely white and red. So in this whole thing, he's talking about how he doesn't like Germans because they were so-called black as well from Germany. And look what he said. Let's increase the lovely white and red. Why did he say that? Why would he say something like that? Because he knew who he was. That's why he used that color. The first came out red. He knew he was Esau. Ben Franklin did. All right. That's why he used that. Because normally you would just say white. Why even include red? That's normally not a color that so-called white people describe themselves by. We may say that, but they normally don't say that unless they're saying redneck or some. They like to call each other rednecks nowadays, but they don't say the white and red, So he wanted more white people around. That's what he was complaining about, So that's just more evidence of who the so-called white man is today, and they know who they are. All right, now let's go back to Revelations, the 12th chapter. Let's get verse 9.
It's the book of Revelations, chapter 12 and verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
So we got a two-part lesson on this. So we're not going to go over everything, but let's get to the point. That great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. And what was his color? What was he described as? All right. Verse 3.
Book of Revelations, chapter 12 and verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head.
A great red dragon. Okay, so when we call the so-called white man Satan or the devil or the serpent, it's not because, we just wanted to, or we just bitter and mad. That's not solely why. It's because it's written this way. That's what he is. That's what he was described as. This was talking about Esau or the Edomites. They're described as the great red dragon, the devil and Satan. The devil, like we saw in its definition. All right. Devil, this word that's used as Harry was used to describe devils, a sacrificial animal, which is appropriate as well because, Esau is going to be a sacrifice for Yahweh when he comes back. All right, so they're going to be a sacrificial animal. Sacrifices are not completely done away with. But anyway, that's another story. But y'all picking up what I'm putting down here? It's all connected. You know what I'm saying? This is all connected. It's not by coincidence at all whatsoever.
God.
All right, let's get the book of Malachi. Start at chapter 1, verse 1.
It's the book of Malachi, chapter 1 and verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi.
Keep going.
I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I love Jacob.
All right. So keep going. Just keep going.
And I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness.
Well, first thing we see is the Most High hated Esau. Okay. It's for the reasons that we talked about in the first part. All right, because he was a violent and wicked man. All right, he tried to kill his beloved, which is Jacob or Israel. He loved Jacob. So of course he gonna hate Esau for trying to kill him. Now, the point though is Esau laid his mountains and his heritage waste for what? For the dragons of the wilderness. See, a dragon is nothing but a elongated serpent. A dragon and a serpent is the same thing. All right. Like, Father, are you still on here right now?
Yes, I am.
Did you watch the Rocky series?
No, I never did.
You didn't watch the Rocky series? Anybody, brothers, watch the Rocky series?
Yeah, I see it.
Who did Rocky fight that time? What's his name? Drago?
Oh, that Russian guy.
Yeah, Drago.
Yeah.
That's short for dragon. All right, they be trying to let you know little stuff like that. You just gotta pay attention. Or even Drake, the rapper Drake, that stands for dragon, believe it or not. But anyway,
in Psalm 91, to speak of the dragon, what it say right there about trample the dragon on your feet, something like that. But I know what you're getting at.
So we can bring it out. So Psalms 91.
Okay. About the dragon right there.
Let's bring it out.
It's kind of in there. I don't know what verse, but
we'll get it. Y'all brothers, let me know when y'all see it.
Verse 13. I see dragon right
there. Yeah. All right, bring that out.
It's the book of Psalms, chapter 91 and verse 13. And it reads, "Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet."
Okay, who is likened to the lion? Judah. And the dragon shalt thou trample under your feet. So this is another prophecy as well. All right. So that's a great point, because this is also a prophecy about Esau as well. He's always likened it to a serpent, a dragon, a devil, a goat, a he-goat, rough, shaggy, and red, all in one. This man got a lot of names, man. Our dog. All right. This is what the scriptures are trying to let us know. All right, but I got that to show that, again, that symbology of red has always been linked directly to Esau. But even though this wasn't even on the point, we got to get verse 4 while we're here. Let's grab that too.
Book of Malachi, chapter 1 and verse 4. And it reads, "Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever."
Esau is the border of wickedness. That's where wickedness begins and ends with Esau, man. This is what the scriptures are telling us. The Lord hath indignation for Esau forever. This was not something that, the Most High got over or anything like that. It's forever. Indignation is righteous anger. All right. The Most High hates Esau. All right. God does not love everybody. Thus saith the Lord. All right. Indignation forever. That's why they don't claim Esau. That's why they don't come out and say they're Edomites, even though they know they're Edomites. At least the elite, quote unquote, elite does. I'm not saying the average, Edomite walking around like they know. They don't know either. But the ones that actually, run the show, they understand. They know who they are. That's why they don't claim it. Who claims Esau? Everybody want to be, so on and so forth in the Bible, but nobody wants to claim Esau, and they don't talk about it. They just act like this is not here. They don't talk about it in church. They just, just completely go over scriptures like this. It doesn't fit their narrative, and they don't want to talk about who this is today. Like Esau just disappeared off planet Earth or something.
They will never read these scripts in the church ever.
Man,
Ever.
me and King just said that, bro. I've never heard the church mention anything about Esau ever.
Me either. Me either. They just completely gloss over it, like it's just not there. And it just makes no sense at all. And again, it just goes against a narrative. It's really a shame. It's really a shame.
They
Hey,
bring
but
his out. Then God don't love everybody. Then
Right.
hey, they'll want to quickly say Jacob stole some though.
Yeah, let's say that. And they'll talk about Abraham and things of that nature. They dang sure talk about Paul. That's one of the only people I knew, before before I understood what was really going on. I knew more about Paul, or at least allegedly did, than Moses and Joshua and all the other great prophets of the Lord. All I heard about was Paul.
yeah, certain parts of Paul, because he definitely told you in Romans 9 that he hated Esau, that the
He
Lord
said
hated Esau.
exactly.
Went into it pretty deep.
Glossed completely over it, like Paul ain't say that. It's sad, man. It's sad. But we see the Lord has indignation forever for Esau. He is the border of wickedness. Okay. That's why we have in this lesson, this breakdown, so we can see who the border of wickedness, who the Lord has indignation forever for. It's important to understand that. Now we're gonna end it with a direct link in the scriptures so we can see who the so-called white man is today. All right, who is Esau? All right. We're going to use our knowledge of knowing who this Edomite is. We know it's a so-called white man. Look at this. Well, I'd be glad when these images are destroyed. My goodness, look at this cat, man. Ugly. Anyway, all right. So we're going to take our knowledge of Alexander the Great, and we're going to link that together to understand who Esau really is. Very easy to see once you know what you're looking at. Let's start out with 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 20.
It's the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 20. And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites.
Okay, so this chapter and this account is important, but we're gonna stay, sticking to the topic here, stick to the topic. And what I want to take from this is that we have someone called Agag, the king of Amalek. All right, Agag, the king of Amalek. Now, Agag is a title just like Pharaoh. There's many pharaohs. So Pharaoh is a title of rulership. That's what you would call the king of Egypt at that time, a pharaoh. Agag is a very similar title. Okay. And then you have Amalek. Who was Amalek? Let's get that real quick. Genesis 36 and 12.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 36 and verse 12. And Timnah was concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son.
So Esau's son is Eliphaz. Keep going.
And she bare Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. Okay,
so Amalek was Esau's grandson because Eliphaz was his son, and he, he had Amalek. So that's his grandson. So Amalek, the king of Amalek, is called Agag. And we know that this is an Edomite because he's Esau's or Edom's grandson. Okay, so we made that link together. So now we know that. Let's move on. Let's take a look here at someone else that was an Agagite or an Agag. Let's go to the book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 1.
It's the book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 1. And these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above the princes that were with him.
All right, so we see that Haman or Haman was an Agagite as well. All right, so Haman is an Agagite, which means that he is an Amalekite. All right, he's from the stock of Amalek, because Amalek, the king from Amalek, or the king of the Edomites, at least one of the lines is called Agag or Agagite. That's the same term, Agag and Agagite. So you have two people here. We'll essentially just Haman that we're going to focus on here. Haman, the Agagite. But we know that he's an Edomite. Haman, the Agagite, is an Edomite. Now let's get the book of First Maccabees. I think we need to do a lesson on First Maccabees chapter 1. But let's get verse 1 here.
God. It's the book of First Maccabees. What is it, chapter 1? Chapter 1,
verse 1.
God. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chedum, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, and he reigned in his stead the first over Greece.
The first over Greece. All right. Remember, we read about that in Daniel, the 8th chapter. This is referring to Alexander, the quote unquote great, or really the creep, Alexander the creep. All right. So Alexander was a Macedonian. So we know that so-called white people or Edomites will also be referred to as Macedonians, because that's over there in Greece. All right. So Alexander the Great was a Macedonian. It even says that here when we look this up. The king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. All right. So let's make the last connection here while we even, going through this, this rabbit hole here. Let's get additions to Esther, chapter 16. This is an apocrypha, by the way. Additions to Esther is basically books of Esther that should be in the standard KJV, King James Version Bible, but it was taken out. And we're going to see why it was taken out. Let's get verse 10.
Chapter 1, verse 10.
This is chapter 16, addition to Esther, chapter 16 and verse 10.
This is the book of additions to Esther, chapter 16 and verse 10. And it reads, for Aman, a Macedonian, the son of Hammedatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us.
There's a link. Now let's put it together. All right. So Aman is who we read about in the book of Esther, Haman. It's the same person. Haman was labeled an Agagite because he was an Edomite ruler. All right. An Agagite. Haman was an Agagite or an Edomite. But guess who else was? Alexander was an Edomite, correct? He was a so-called white man, but also a Macedonian. Haman was also a Macedonian. So if Haman is a Macedonian, and also because this is not the biblical, his biblical heritage name of, Esau or an Edomite. Normally you have your patriarchal name, like Israelite, so on and so forth. But sometimes you see Israelites called Greeks or called Romans, like in the book of Romans. That book was written to Israelites that lived in Rome, or like Paul. These are Israelites that dwelt in other lands that were called that name in that land. So Haman dwelt in Macedonia. He was also called a Macedonian. So if Haman is a Macedonian, and we know he was an Edomite, we know that Alexander the Greek was also a Macedonian. We know that Haman and Alexander were of the same stock. And we know that he's so-called white. Then we know that the Edomites today, the so-called white people, are Edomites. They are from the stock of Esau. All right. Does that link make sense?
Con.
Con.
All right. So that's how we know. All right. That's direct. All right. Now let's just in and out with a few scriptures talking about Esau and how we know through prophecy who this man is as well. Let's get Exodus chapter 17 and verse 16.
The book of Exodus, chapter 17 and verse 16. And it reads, "For he said, because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generations to generation."
So this tribe of, so to speak, of Esau is going to have war with the Most High from generation to generation. That's still going on today. We talked about the Rothschilds. Where they at? Rothschilds are Amalekites. All right, we talked about the other ruling families, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. They are Amalekites. All right, most of the people that own everything of this world, this current society, are quote unquote Jewish, which are Amalekites. That's why we have war with them from generation to generation. This is prophecy playing out in real life. All right, these words weren't written for no reason. This is real life. It applies to our daily lives today. All right. Scripture is not a game. History is not nothing to play with. This is real life. All right. Look at these goats, man. This is another description of Esau. So you know he's connected to the goat. He got hair just like a goat. All right. What else I had pulled up here? Somebody got some?
La.
Con. All right. Let's get Hebrews chapter 12. We'll start at 14 through 16.
Con. It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 12 and verse 14. "Follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord."
Well, one thing to notice here is that the word men is italicized here. When you see a word that's italicized, it was added to the KJV. Sometimes for purposes like understanding, well, not understanding from the standpoint of understanding what it's really saying, but just to kind of complete sentences, and then things like this where they're just trying to indoctrinate you. It's not really saying have peace with all men per se. But that's just an aside. Keep going.
Verse 15, "Looking diligently, lest any man fail at the grace of the Most High, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled.
Keep going.
Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright."
So that's why the Most High has indignation for Esau forever, because he's a fornicator and a profane person. All right, up there in Mount Seir in the Caucasus Mountains, this man was inbred. All right, they would, find a way to make this as least vile as possible, but they were huge in incest. You know,
So
they
I,
first kind.
and it's still going on now. When I travel to these small towns, you can actually see it down south.
Yeah, they prefer their own cousins and things of that nature. And sometimes even worse. You're right, they still do it today, but they don't talk about that. But it's a real thing. It's a real thing, and it's deep. When I say deep, as in it's heavy for them. They partake in incest. All right, that's what fornication is. At least one aspect of fornication is incest. Esau's a very profane person, man. All right, and they are major fornicators. That's why the Most High hates them. All right, for one morsel of meat, so is birthright. You know, Paul talking about this is that's how despicable it is, man. All right. Um, Now this is something that would need about 2 or 3 lessons talking about the so-called white man in um, the 12th century and in the dark ages and things of that nature. But as we see here, I had this pulled up real quick. Remember, we talked about how we ruled in Europe. This is what the so-called white man, this is what he was doing in the Middle Ages. When I say the Middle Ages, from around 500 BC to about 1500 BC. I mean, not BC, no, AD definitely. About 500, year 500 to about 1500. All right. He was known as the wild man. Now look at this. This is supposed to be mythical, but this is what the mythos of the wild man, how he was described. You'll never see a so-called black man, you know, having hair all over, being wild, using, you know, uh, wood he did picked up as weapons and all this madness. The so-called white man is known as a wild man. All right. So that's just something else I picked up. So you will see how he's been depicted throughout history. Red, hairy all over like a hairy garment, man. The so-called white man is Esau. He's the shaggy one.
It's a lot.
Con.
Hey, what's that song? Who is that? Machine Gun Kelly or on Yellow came out called what? Wild Boy.
Wild boy. You see? You see? Look, they're bringing up the scriptures. Latin, Pelosi meaning hairy. They know it's a so-called white man. All right. We used to make fun of these people, man. All right. Back in Europe, these were, you know, they were the butt end of the joke, just like it's going to be when Yahweh comes back. All right. And this is where I got that orchis from, y'all. See that? Again, what does that look like? Travis Scott Astro World nonsense. You know, he was showing them that they were going into the underworld. But anyway, that's another story. All right. So I had this pulled up, but you know what? We let's just end it with Jeremiah 49:10.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 49 and verse 10. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not.
He is not. That's deep. When you see he is not or so and so is not, that means they are dead. All right. But the point is, the Most High is going to uncover all of his secrets. He's not going to be able to hide himself. All right. His seed is already spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, meaning his stock. It's over with. Soon, everybody's going to know who Esau really is. All these deceptions. Oh, that's another thing. The word, when a serpent is also always pretty much liken, well, not always liken it to it, but the serpent is likened it to deception. What has the so-called white man been doing this whole pandemic? Deceiving people, you know?
Big
And
time.
they're going to be discovered for this, man. They're not going to put up, they can't do all this forever. They know, like in, is that Revelation 12:12? You know, Satan know he has but a short time, man. He know he has but a short time because he know these prophecies are going to come to pass. He's going to be uncovered out of his secret places, not going to be able to hide himself. So the moral of the point is, look, Esau, the so-called white man, man. That's where I'm getting at. All right, we could tell that through history, through scriptures, and everything else that's going on today in this world. And the so-called black man is Jacob, or Israel, the prince of the power, the apple of the Most High's eyes. All right, the chosen one. All right, and one last thing I want to say too, I didn't get to touch on. It just popped up to me when we were talking about Mount Seir. Isn't it interesting that Mount Seir looks like this, is dry and rugged and rough? In Israel, the land of Israel, not the person, but or the people, the land of Israel was likened to a land of flowing of milk and honey. We had all this gold and grand, grand rulership and kingdom. And this is what Esau had. That's why they so mad, man. That's why they so mad. You see a dichotomy there. You got basically one evil brother and one righteous brother. But that wicked brother has been deceiving the righteous brother, having them thinking he the one going off, but he really the devil. So that's what the Most High got going on in the scriptures, man. That's who we are. That's who Esau is. I mean, we could do another part, but I think we pretty much, covered a lot of the bases of who he is. So, with that, I conclude.
Great lesson.